Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is Muhammad from the platform of Muslimin Campaigns. We have been intending to start our Saturday sessions at 12 noon sharp every Saturday. But today there was some internet problem, so we're starting exactly 30 minutes late. Sorry about that. Okay, so the single national curriculum, it's not a new news that Pakistan is starting out with a single national curriculum. It's the news has been around for about a year, but along with this news, we also had COVID, so schools were not properly going back to schooling because of the COVID. But now that the new session has started in 2021 and the single national curriculum has been formally inaugurated. So there were a lot of apprehensions regarding the single national curriculum, and now that people are actually interacting with the single national curriculum, there are diverse opinions about it. So starting out with the fact that our Prime Minister Imran Khan, before going into any kind of discussion about Prime Minister Imran Khan and the curriculum he has come up with, I want to add a little note over here that like even parents who have a circular split, they have divorced, even in the case of their children's education, they are in coordination because they don't want their personal grudges or personal differences to affect their children's education. Similarly, I think that all of us need to address the issue of single national curriculum irrespective of the fact that it has come from Prime Minister Imran Khan from the political party of PTI. Perhaps many of us would not be supporters of PTI, so we need to look at the single national curriculum from a national point of view, not from a political point of view. So, Prime Minister Imran Khan is a visionary leader and a revolutionary leader, and when he was coming into politics, like most of us, we don't like politicians, any politician, and in our drawing rooms when we are talking about politics and politicians, we often say that it's a dirty field, and politicians are not good people. But the thing is that if we leave the field of politics to dirty people, so how would politics become a clean place? I mean, somebody has to lead the nation, somebody has to do politics, like not the negative politics, but to be a politician and to do the governance. So, I think given the background of Prime Minister Imran Khan, given the fact that he was a cricketer, he's mashallah an Oxford graduate, and like he has religious tendencies. So just like in cricket he was an all-rounder, I think that in real life he's an all-rounder as well. His education, his career, his interest, he has been in and out. He's been in the east and the west, and in Pakistan and UK and all around the world. So he knows all the cultures. He has interacted with all the cultures, and he has first-hand knowledge of the education system, of the local education system and the foreign education system. So when he was running for elections, he threw a lot of creative and revolutionary ideas that when I will come into power, these are some of the things I will do. Okay, now single national curriculum was one of them, and all of us were very happy about the fact that finally this three-stream education system that is going on in our country, the government schools, they have their own curriculum, own methodologies, own setup, the private schools, and then the madrasa system. So it was a three-lane parallel system of education which was running in the society, and because of that, the students that were coming out, the professionals which were coming out, they were also of three categories. There was and is a difference between these three. So what did Imran Khan say? He said that there'll be a merger. We will merge the government schooling and the private schooling and the madrasa schooling, and all of them will merge to become one holistic education system. Now anybody with a common sense would be very happy about this fact that yes, finally we get to be on one page in education, and when we are on one page in education, then we'll be on one page in profession as well as a society as well. We'll have the same kind of ideas floating around. But what happened was that yes, there were a lot of people coming on television and talking about the single national curriculum as well. And obviously, we thought that, what does single national curriculum mean? It means that we'll be getting guidelines. For example, talking from a religious knowledge point of view, for perhaps the guidelines would be that in preschool, in the kindergarten and Montessori years, children will be taught the Qaida, which enables them to read the Quran, to recognize the alphabets of the Quran and to read it. Then in the primary years, in the primary section of education, they will be taught the Nazra. Generally, all of us have Qari Sahibs coming into homes and teaching Nazra. So just like contemporary schooling is the responsibility of the school, so is religious knowledge to quite an extent. So instead of having a separate Qari Sahib coming into each home, and we do not know that what standard of Quranic education the children are getting, because it's all random. There is no one body governing it. So just like we have a standard for maths, for English, for science, so similarly, there would be the Nazra will be taught in at school. And then perhaps the guideline could be that tafsir, the explanation of the Quran, should be taught in the senior section, the senior years. So this is a guideline, and this is what I remember. There were many people coming on television, and they were talking about the single national curriculum before it had actually come. So they were saying it's a guideline. So we were all very happy about it. But in these summers, suddenly came the news that a single national curriculum has been launched, and there are so when I heard this news, I went to the nearest bookshop and I asked them to give me a set of the single national curriculum, and I opened it, and I shut it. In my opinion, the single national curriculum books, they have improved in content and graphics and paper, the paper quality, as compared to the older books which used to be there. But the gap between the books, the government school books which were previously in use, and the private school curriculum books, the gap is so big that obviously it could not happen that the government schools standard could just have been, like just raised so much that it just matches the private schools. And similarly, obviously, when we say of single national curriculum and when we talk about improvement in education, we did not at all expect, it's not logical that the standard of have lowered, unintentionally lowered the level of private schools. And the private schools are not ready to do that. And the private school parents are not. So this is a big problem. Um, we understand it's a big challenge to bring the all three systems onto one, on one page. But perhaps there has to be some way around it, other than compromising on an education system which is already going good. It's of a good quality. Instead of lowering that to meet the other group, there has to be some other way. Now, what has happened is this, that oh yes, other than the fact that um, the quality difference that I'm talking about, um, So my question is that instead of giving a complete, and it could be from any book, it could be from any textbook, you are, well, we are supposed to give the guidelines, the academic guidelines, the educational body is supposed to give the guidelines. And when we say, when the educational body says that, after the, these are the books we have made compulsory, and other than that you can teach anything else, so that's a very dangerous thing, I think. I mean, if a school says that, okay, fine, we're teaching the single national curriculum books, and then they have added some other books, some other subjects which are totally contradictory to the single national curriculum concept, the ideology we are trying to promote, Islam, you know, there could be books, for example, at the senior level promoting homosexuality. So when you've given the guideline that you're supposed to teach the single national curriculum books because they have a certain ideology, they have been built upon a certain ideology and certain curriculum and certain targets. Other than that, you may teach anything else you want. So what anything else? Then every school, any school, any XYZ school, they could be teaching something which we don't want our children to learn. So what would happen then? So I don't understand the to follow rather than the guidelines. And then other than those books, we may teach anything else. So what is that anything else? There's no guidelines about that. So that is I think, serious issue that we need to think about, because even in Pakistan, there are all kinds of people and there are all kinds of mentality, and we have the going on in any school. Next, choice of language. When we appreciate Finland on the European countries, that they have a teachers training session a few years back, and they were saying that the latest educational methodology that Finland and its like-minded countries are coming up with is that if you want to put a question to a child that how to make a box, it's perfectly fine and it's the child's choice if they want to write out the method, and that is the Eastern parents' favorite method. Anything the child is supposed to do, he's supposed to write it out, even if it's required or not. And or the child may vocally tell us that how to make a box, and that is something that all in the East we're all scared of. We don't like oral exams because it makes us nervous. And thirdly, a child may say that I don't want to write it out and I don't want to tell you verbally, but I will make the box for you. So all three methods are fine. And in the field of education, it's called that some children are visual learners, and some are auditory learners, and some are kinesthetic learners. So making a box and showing how to make a box is a quality of the kinesthetic learners, and I think all children would love to do that. Instead of writing out or speaking out, they would love to make a box and show us that this is how a box is made. But in Pakistan, our education system and our examination system is far behind this kind of teaching, learning, and examination. So coming back to the issue of language, some of the books of the single national curriculum are in Urdu, and they have been made compulsory. So how can we uh, force a children who have been studying, who have been doing their schooling for so long years in particular language, either in Urdu or in English? How can we force those children to suddenly switch to another language? So I would say that, why not have the choice? I mean, there could be a choice that, if a child wants to do his schooling in English, he should have the choice. If a child wants to do his schooling in Urdu, he should have a choice. And the only subjects which must be made compulsory to be taught in a particular language are the languages, of course. I mean, English has to be taught in English and Urdu has to be taught in Urdu. But maths, science, geography, history, to force students to study them in a particular language, I don't think it's a good idea. And if we are getting so focused on, like being switching to Urdu, a few years back, I was at this. It was a conference, and there was this one person, belonging to some Urdu organization, and he was saying that we will, one day, uh, we'll make it happen that the entire curriculum, the official language, everything that goes on in Pakistan would be turned into Urdu. So we say that Urdu is our national language, right? But many people are passionate about their, local language as well. The Sindhis are very passionate about Sindhi, and the Pashtun are very passionate about Pashto. So what if the next movement starts that all books should be in Pashto, all books should be in Sindhi, all books should be in Punjabi? If you go deeper and deeper into this thing, so I think there should be a choice. Turning everything into Urdu would, I don't think it will make us either a stronger nation or make us more ideological or progress us in any way. Coming to the second part of this language issue, if we feel that we do need to have a single language which should be our official language, and it should be our mother tongue, our school educational language, our official language, everything should be in one language, then what I'm about to say would sound perhaps a bit strange, but I would nonetheless ask you to reflect upon it. And that reflection is that, alhamdulillah, we are all Muslims. And when we read the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the Muslim as a nation at 40 places. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the word Qawm. And, repeatedly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word Qawm. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not use that word Qawm for Pakistanis or Saudis or Afghanis, Iranis, Iraqis, Indonesians, anybody. The word Qawm refers to being a Muslim. As Muslims, we have forgotten that our identity is not defined by geography. It is defined by ideology. So, as Muslims, we are one nation. So when we are saying that Hamari Qawmi Zaman Urdu hai, we are kind of making a contradiction with the Quran. I'm sorry to say this. If we want to talk about a national language, then our national language is Arabic. It's not Urdu. Urdu is our regional language. And then when we go further into those regions, then we have further languages, like within Urdu we have Punjabi and then Sindhi and Pashto and Balochi and all these languages. So these are regional languages. If you want to talk about nationalism, well then as a Muslim, our national language is Arabic. So if you want to make this huge effort to converge everything into one language, then that has to be Arabic. That is something worth, that movement would be worth it. If somebody argues with me that no, language has it has a big impact. Yes, if that kind of huge movement is required, then that movement should be towards Arabic, not Urdu, because Urdu is just a regional language. So, if we converge to Arabic, yes, then we would be, more connected to the Arab world and to the rest of the Muslims as well around the world. Then they would be also, then they also need to converge to a national language if this is the issue that we want. We need to be doing everything in our national language, speaking it and studying it, and having our official matters written and documented. So, Arabic versus Urdu, that is something that we need to think about. After that, Islamic. There was a demonstration over there by a group of quite elite, I must say. They looked very elite educationists, and they were protesting the single national curriculum very, very passionately. And I went and read their placards. The issue they were highlighting is that through the single national curriculum, there is a process of Islamicization going on. So I don't have a problem with that. That's like I'm just mentioning it because this Islamicization uh, allegation is one of the objections that is being raised on the single national curriculum. But uh, coming from the background I am, coming from the ideology I have, we do not have a problem with that at all. If the curriculum is being Islamicized, that's fine. That's great, in fact, because uh, the children need, uh, the Muslim children need a coherent, uh, they need a coherent system where they're getting the same ideology from their parents, from their school, from the society. It's that which makes strong Muslims. If children, at that tender age, at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, if they're getting contradictions, like I'm a Beaconite, and when I was in school, um, my family was traditionally religious. I'm saying traditionally religious because we were very quite strict in prayers and keeping in keeping rozas and all the Islamic mm, rituals. But like the Pakistani society of those times, we were into music and movies and that kind of stuff as well. So in our days, when we were children, this was the norm. Being religious was that if you say your prayers and you keep fast and you do Hajj, and that's good enough. That's what we knew at that time. So, but the school I was in, it had a different, totally. Even that was not perfect, but still it had some shades of Islam in it, and the ideology that I was getting from school. So between the two, I was quite confused. So Alhamdulillah, Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the opportunity of actually directly studying the Quran, and I bless Al Huda International and my madrasa and Islamic University and all the places that I've studied at for giving me a totally new perspective to life. Anyhow, coming out of that, what I'm saying is that the people who are objecting to the Islamicization of the content, uh, we do not have a problem with that. And thing was that what about the non-Muslim children? How would they feel about it? So I think that given the fact that we have to have respect for the minorities and to give them a comfortable environment. However, uh, one does not design anything, be it education, be it an aeroplane, or be it a house, for the um, you keep the majority in mind. And when we say I'm not saying majority is authority, but you have when we're designing our education system, we have a bigger objective, and that is to educate and to condition and to give an ideology to our Muslim children. If in between that there are non-Muslim children as well, we have to look for positive alternates for them. I'm not saying that send them out of the class or something like that, but there must be some alternates. When one sits down to think of alternates, there must be some. There would be some. We have to come up with creative alternates, but you do not change and tailor your main curriculum for the exceptions. So if the curriculum is being Islamicized, I think that's great. Many years ago, I was at there was a discussion going on in a teaching group, and in that, one of the teachers was saying that, we don't have to teach Islamiyat only in the Islamiyat book. And, the tragedy of our childhood was that, we used to have thick, 2 inches thick books of maths and science and English and all the other subjects. And Islamic studies was just, I think, 0.25 inches, a black and white book, very unattractive. So she was saying that, there are in which you incorporate the Islamic concepts, ideology, and ethics into every subject. And I was totally amazed by what she was saying. For example, she was saying that, making maths, instead of just making, like those kind of questions on which, Facebook is coming up with memes saying that, okay, this is the guy who buys 10 kgs of bananas. She was saying that, for example, Ahmad is sick, and Muhammad decides to take some apples for him to the hospital. So, when we are phrasing even our maths questions, we can incorporate concepts of generosity and goodwill and kindness. You know, when we tag them saying Islamic concepts, there's a revulsion by some people. So, I'm not addressing that. I'm just saying that, to teach Islam, to teach ethics through, other subjects, I think it's fine. It's a beautiful idea. It's a great idea. Except for those who, really have an aversion to Islam and religion and, concepts associated with it. But they are a minority, and, I'm not even saying that they are not right because they are a minority. It could be that the minority group is at right. When Islam started out, Muslims were in minority, but they were at the right. Size the society, along with making it a progressive society. We should value it. However, the issues that we have just highlighted regarding the single curriculum, they need to be addressed too. As far as Islamic content, there was just one thing that I kind of, it clicked with me, and that was that one of those protesters was saying that they're showing little girls in hijab, so that would kind of make it obligatory. It's giving out a message that, girls should be in hijab from, such an early age. So, perhaps there he was right. I mean, if they're showing a woman and she's in hijab, I'm perfectly fine with it. If she's in niqab, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. But if they're showing, 4 or 5 year old girls sitting inside their homes wearing the full, so perhaps that is a bit unrealistic. That's not how you are at home. Perhaps the mother can be shown, with her head covered even within home, fine, because, you don't want to, you're trying to promote the idea of hijab for women. But, little girls, they are not, it's not compulsory for them to wear the hijab. So, if the new curriculum books are so heavily bombarded with hijab, if, I'm saying if, I've not seen all of the books, if they are, then that is something that perhaps can be altered in the next version of those books. But to protest against hijab and to protest against saying that um, this is not the way we are. For example, if the society is not doing hijab, and we say that we'll not depict hijab in our books because that's not the reality, so what? Like, for example, for a secular or an atheist person, for example, everybody agrees that nobody should be a bully. But if the society is full of bulliness, would we promote that in our books, and would we show that in our books, and say, and justify it by saying that that's the way we are, so that's what we'll portray? No, books are supposed to be guidelines to guide you towards the right. So even if something, for example, hijab, if even if it's not so, if you think it's not so rampant in the society, if it's not being practiced so much as it is being depicted, even then it's okay. We are trying, or the educational team of Pakistan is trying to promote the hijab through showing it on the book. So that's fine. We are not saying that this is a reality or this is not the reality. We're just giving a guideline that this is how it's supposed to be. Like a maths key book, it has all the questions correct. So nobody stands up and say that how can the maths key book show all questions done correct? In reality, it's not so. If anybody solves maths questions, they do half of them wrong. So does that mean we'll make a key book with half of the questions done wrong? No. So it's fine that if the single national curriculum and the team are trying to promote Islamic concepts and to build patriotic concepts, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so going back to the discussion about the single national curriculum not being so much about guidelines, but being about specific books. If that, because that is what I've understood so far. Initially, last year, up to last year, I was thinking they're just giving guidelines. Then, when the single national curriculum actually came, and people said, no, 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 go and check. It's actually the books that are being mandatory. So much so that I even read in the news that schools will be inspected to find out whether they're teaching the single national curriculum books or not. If not, they will be penalized. So, what do you think? That private schools will not? Because those books are of such good quality. You leave those books and pick up local publication when you have an alternate of the same quality. If we do not have an alternate of the same quality, we cannot let go quality and pick up something just because it's being, locally produced or something of the sort. I'll give an example related to this. I may be giving a bit of an extreme example, but just to make you understand what I'm trying to say. In the subcontinent, when the British took over and they erased the Muslim education system, which was in Persian at that time, the Muslims were so offended that many Muslim families chose to pick up their children from school and not make them go to school again. It was a kind of a national religious movement that no, our children will not study the British education system because they will get misguided. So what happened? The difference between India's advancement and Pakistan's advancement right now goes back to those years when for 10, 20, 30, 50 years perhaps, I don't know the timeline, how long the Muslim families did not send their children to school. But because of that, there came a gap. The Hindus, they were not bothered because for them switching from Persian education system or even their own education system to British education system was not a big deal. But for Muslims it was. But look where it left us. So I am all for having an independent Islamic education system. I think that should be our goal. That would be the best thing that can happen to the Muslim world as of now. But replacing books while we don't have an equivalent quality books, that would not be a good idea. So yes, we need to, number one, we have to have guidelines by the government that what should be taught in schools. But on the other hand, it also comes to my mind that God forbid if some secular government comes at the top. So if we have the rule that the government will decide what is to be taught, then we might be forced to teach secular concepts. That would not be okay with us. So anyhow, hoping for good days ahead, inshallah. I hope that the direction that we are going on towards Islamicization and independence in education, I hope we keep going there. But the issue is that the enforcement of single national curriculum, particular books that this book has to be taught, is a problem. It's a very big problem, and because of this, what has happened is no way private schools or private school parents or private school students are willing to give up their original curriculum. So what is happening is, if you see at the book list of school, what they have done is that they've kept their entire curriculum, which used to be there before, and they've added the single national curriculum books as well. So now imagine the book load of a primary school student now. Previously they used to have, for example, Oxford Primary Mathematics Book 3 and Workbook 3A and Workbook 3B, and now they've added to it the fourth book, the SNC book. So can that child study and complete and complete with understanding all, because the school is not ready to leave the Oxford book or whatever Cambridge book, whatever book they were using, and it has been enforced upon them kind of to do the SNC book as well. So they're taking the two of them along. So I think that's a great. The victim of this strategy is the child. He has to do so much more in the same time, and obviously when we are trying to stuff the same time limit with more books, what will happen? The child will not understand those concepts properly, and the child is being overloaded in terms of baggage and concepts and baggage. The teacher is being overloaded in her teaching curriculum, in her teaching curriculum breakdown, and at the end of the day, the education might suffer, because that thing which was, which the child was supposed to study in bits and pieces spread out over time, that curriculum has been loaded with more books, which are basically a repetition of the same concepts, but to complete 4 books is still a task. So in the end, I would just like to request the educational body of the single national curriculum that we are more than happy to take guidelines from you. Whatever guidelines you give with respect to math, science, English, Urdu, Islamic studies, Quran studies, we are more than happy to we would welcome them, and we'll happily implement them. But they need to be guidelines, not specific books. And what I think is that perhaps after 1 semester or 2 semesters, all the previous books which have been in running, they will get their SNC stamps. Most probably they will, inshallah. But we have had 1 year of very traumatic education because of corona. Switching from on-site classes to online, then online to on-site, going 3 days a week to school, 2 days a week to school. All of this has been quite traumatic for the students, parents, and school. Now, this next year, or I don't know for how long, it's going to be another traumatic experience, carrying the load of SNC books upon the books which are originally being taught as a part of the curriculum. So I would really request and recommend that please give us guidelines, make guidelines, but do not make certain books specific that this book has to be taught. Because if this thing will remain, the problems that I have just talked about will remain as well. Last but not the least, in view of the current affairs going on, and in view of the fact that one of our very, very brilliant brains, a brilliant brain in education, a woman who studied from Pakistan and then studied from abroad, and who was a Hafiz Quran as well. She became a victim of post 9/11 circumstances. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Dr. Afia Siddiqui, who has her PhD in how to teach mentally challenged children. So, since this talk is about education, but very few educationists talk about her, I think it's her right upon us that she was an educationist, and it was her dream to build an educational city in Pakistan, in Karachi, of such a high standard that people from abroad would come to Pakistan to study, not the other way around, so that we do not have a brain drain. But it's very sad that the same brainy girl, the same brainy person, educationist, she has been drained into America right now. So I would request you, if you read the news, if you follow the social media, you must be knowing that once again Dr. Afia Siddiqui has been physically abused in the prison, and she has called out for help. So I would request the sons of Muhammad bin Qasim and the daughters of Muhammad bin Qasim of this land who are Muslims, thanks to Muhammad bin Qasim, to continue the legacy of Muhammad bin Qasim and do everything that is in your uh, possibilities to be part of the international campaign that is going on right now to have Dr. Afia Siddiqui released. And the minimum you can do is you can pick up your mobiles, download the Citizens Portal, which I'm sure most of you already have on your mobiles. Just make a request for Dr. Afia Siddiqui on that app. All you have to do is go to the complaint section. They will ask you whether you have a personal grievance or you have a social responsibility complaint. So you will click the social responsibility complaint and go to the prisoner's rights, denial of rights. You will go to denial of rights and then you will request for Dr. Afia Siddiqui to be released. May God bless you and Jazakallah for spending time with Musawimin campaigns today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.